Hey guys,
Well,
welcome back to the Build Your A-Team podcast. Thanks for joining. We are doing something a little differently today where I have a lineup of perhaps two of my favorite veteran recruiters who are running their own staffing businesses. They're fellow vets, they're also recruiter, their team recruits for them. And they are examples of what we call the veteran 2.0, right? They're the folks that have that mindset that brings the military precision, the leadership grit, and just ability to execute in corporate. So I am very happy to introduce first Stephen Hrutka. He's the principal consultant of HRUCKUS LLC, SDVOSB, so Service Disabled Veteran Owned Small Business, as he delivers management consulting and recruiting solutions across federal, state, local, and the education fields. Stephen is a former SWO and also a Wharton MBA. He's worked at Gartner as a management consultant and at A.T. Kearney as well prior to starting his company. And the other guest is Ryan Hogan. He's the founder and CEO of Talent Harbor, Navy vet. He was a former aircrewman and a commissioned officer, and he's served on the USS Comstock. He completed SEER training, which is unusual, but that's cool. And he's an entrepreneur. So Ryan started several other businesses. Launched Wear platform for service members to sell their gear. Also started a zombie themed obstacle race called Run for Your Lives. And finally, Hunt a Killer. He co-founded Hunt a Killer, a game, but now he is recruiting and he has a team at Talent Harbor. We all take on like different perspectives of recruiting for our clients, and that's really interesting. So, would you, Stephen, go first? Say hey and tell us a little bit about your take on recruiting.
thanks, Freddie. Thanks, Ryan, for being here. So we have an interesting model. We do contract work in the state, local education space, SLED. Majority of our contract revenue is for the DC government. Well, we're certified in several other states and large municipalities, and we bid on those projects as well. We won work for Maryland courts, Baltimore County Schools, West Virginia Lottery, working on a big deal for the state of Pennsylvania. But those contract wins are few and far between, very competitive. So the intense tech stack we have, we leverage every tool possible. We're constantly updating what we have to offer to our customers, but that's not cheap. And so a year into starting Ruckus, I realized I needed more customers, and I started marketing my services to other veteran-owned and 8A firms in the federal side. So not only are we bidding on SLED work, we're also recruiting across federal, DoD, even the IC for other veteran-owned firms. We don't differentiate on price. We focus on speed, quality, and empathy, but we are able to offer a value proposition that they wouldn't be able to get from a K-Force or a Robert Half or even get their attention.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So lots of government contracting. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Hogan. Is this where we do the background as well?
Yes, if there's definitely, let's add to it. Yeah, for sure. Go for it.
Nice. Freddie, thanks for having me. Hrutka, it's great to see you again. It's been a joy being. Now it's going to be our second year in a row being in the CEO circle. So excited about that. Yeah, I'm probably like the furthest you could get away from a recruiter in a lot of different respects. I think what's really interesting is I sold Hunt a Killer last year. My business coach at the time, Vistage Chair, came to me and he was like, hey kid, you're not going to be able to sit still. Go pick your favorite line item and go do that for a while. I was also going through Naval War College at the time. That's a whole nother kind of spiel here. We don't have to go down that path. But took about 6 months off, looked at my P&L, And I was like, it's people. Like that's the thing that lights me up on my P&L. People, development, coaching, mentoring, everything people related. Except we had this one line item for recruiting, and we spent like $1 million on it. And I was like, what an interesting industry to go and look at through a different lens. And so that's what we've done. Now, listen, I don't know how many posts you guys see that I do, but usually on Monday I do this thing. Freddie, can we curse on this show? You said it's veteran focused, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Sweet. Okay, so Mondays I shit post. I shit post on the industry. This is going to be one of the rare cases where all of us probably see eye to eye on this, because usually what I'm talking about is this notion of recruiting, the business model of recruiting on contingent basis for 20 to 30% of first year salary is highway robbery. I will tell you though that there are very specific niches and very specific types of searches where that holds true. And so the things that you guys do, I'll probably do less poo talking today, because the things that you guys do is worth it. Like when you're going into security clearance related searches, when you're doing things for GovCon, it's a very different type of search. You're building kind of a long tail database full of qualified candidates. That's very different. But for the most part, and especially the things that we were searching for at Hunt to Killer, can be done at a place that's more accessible to small, medium-sized businesses. So that's what I do is we do primarily searches for businesses that are operating on EOS, anywhere between the 3 to 5 million range, all the way up to 50 million. And we do it through a flat monthly rate, which we call recruiting as a service. And so it's just a flat monthly rate. When you need us, you turn us on. When you don't, you put us on pause, and we're there waiting.
Awesome. And in the 20 to 30% fees, highway robbery, I get it. I hear ya. That's the market, though. That's market, right? And that's what we offer. I think MilSpec we do on a one-off basis, but for volume, we also do a headhunting as a service package. Just that really cuts down on that cost. But yes, if you're continuing to pay for this consistently as a business, I mean that's a lot of money. That's $1 million in your P&L going as an expense. So I want to ask you guys here, let's jump into funny recruiting stories or things that stuck out at you as you started your business. Do you have a story you like to share, or a story that you have for, just how difficult and complex in a seemingly simple industry our industry is?
I guess I'll go first. So when I started this, I went to a meeting with the chief technology officer for the DC government in March of 17. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I got my $400 LinkedIn license, started submitting resumes. I'm like, oh, I'll just do this until I get another contract role as a management consultant. And we got a win early. We had a tier 1 network engineer get hired by the government, and I didn't know it at the time, but the prime had hired him for a different contract. So he knew him, known resource. So we got a win early. So our win rate was like 100%. And then fast forward a year, win rate's down to like 3%. So I'm like, oh, wait, this is really expensive and really hard kind of thing. So that was a wake-up call. Obviously, we're trying to get clients with better fill rates. Another horror story, it's like, you work with a candidate for a month, you get them onboarded, screened, they get their laptop on day 1 and quit the same day. So like that's an unfunny story of what we have to deal with on the daily.
Yeah, that makes me cringe. But yes, that happens, right? Because we're dealing with like the most volatile subject, humans, and sometimes that happens. People just change their minds last minute. What about you, Ryan?
I'll do the same, like one funny and one unfunny. But the funny is like 5 seconds, which is, Stephen, everything you just said there is correct, and especially where it comes to the licenses. I think the biggest surprise I had getting into this industry is how expensive those licenses are. And I could go on a tangent on like why licenses are so expensive. Mostly the 20 to 30% contingent, but like we spend $1,200 for like the full suite of licenses for every single employee every single month. And that stuff adds up. So you got LinkedIn, you've got your ATS, which we use Loxo, highly recommend, amazing platform. Indeed, like all the different things. So that's one thing. Two, this is an unfunny story, and it's less about recruiting, but when we were in the green room, one of the things you talked about is like your audience is starting business and looking at hires. And so this is about a hire that I made at Hunt to Killer, and I'll leave names out there, but we had went out and we hired somebody with all of the credentials. So when Hunt to Killer was probably around 35, 40 million, like my vision was $1 billion, because why not, right? Like we can all dream. So if we're going to hit $1 billion, then what do we need from a talent standpoint? We need someone that's sitting at $1 billion, because that person's going to be the one that gets us to $1 billion. And one of the like the most painful lessons that I've learned through entrepreneurship, because like when you go out, all the talk tracks are like hire for what you need in the future, not what you need for today. Frankly, I think that is bullshit. I think you do hire for what you need today. I think when you start looking at hiring people that are at different like levels, different phases for the company, like the person that we hired that was sitting at $1 billion company that had that would get the person that we hired like was used to a full suite of assistants, a full team of people that were doing all the execution work. And so when they came in, they were like, okay, great. This is what I think we should do. And that was like the extent of it. It wasn't the actual execution of those things, because that person was used to a full team. And so probably the biggest lesson that I learned is like, you know, if you're at 50 million, you want to get to 100 million, the person you want is someone that was at a $50 million company that was there for the ride to 100 million, and maybe was like a manager at the time when they started and got to like senior manager or director level, because that's the person that's going to know where all the landmines are and how to navigate. So less funny, but a terrible hiring story in a place that I've gotten it wrong on more than one occasion.
Yeah, we get that a lot, Ryan, right? So I want to actually just clarify for the listeners here. Here's three of us, right? Veteran recruiters, military veterans and recruiters, and we all kind of tackle this from unique angles, right? It is all about people, and that's why I got into it as well, Ryan, right? So a man without, a leader without followers is a man going for a walk type thing, right? You need people who need to follow you and execute. You need a great team, and that's what prompted me to get in recruiting. But can can you describe, just Stephen, you coming from SLED and government, right? And the problems you solve for your clients there, and how you articulate your value prop versus you, Ryan, right? Where you are coming at this you kind of double down on the integrators in the EOS world, right? And how do you solve that problem for your clients? How do you articulate your value prop? And I'll do the same for MilSpec.
Okay, so for most of our roles, we have a 5 business day window to post, source, recruit, vet, submit. So we're used to a high tempo, and all our processes are documented. Every rec is tracked in Asana. Uh, every step is labeled and assigned. We're fairly matrixed on the recruiting side, so if someone's out, someone can cover. We have all our processes documented to meet that 2 to 5 day turnaround. I will say that everyone likes to think they're hiring the 1%, but I don't think that's the case. Otherwise, 99% of people wouldn't be working. I think in government, you looking for 80% and above, or like top 20% and above, because the rates aren't there to what a company could pay for the best person. So we just really dial down into skills matrix, personality assessments, and certifications to get these people over the wire in those 5 days.
Yeah,
So
I mean, that's a whole different way you operate your business than how Ryan and I do, where you're volume based, you're staffing, you're like people who have the credentials, and that's the predominant focus for your search, right? And then you go and deliver and submit and see what the client says for that. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, completely different. Like at day 5, like we've got the marketing materials done. We haven't even gone to market yet on that search, and like more power to you because that's a very high tempo and probably very stressful environment. Um, we primarily focus on sales roles, and so I think one of our kind of unique value propositions is like we are heads down. We do some marketing as well. We have done some integrator searches, but really where our sweet spot is sales, and there's a couple reasons for that. On the marketing standpoint, so when we think about like the growth engine for the business, the first is the easiest place to sell into any organization is through the sales core function area. They've got the most influence, the highest decision-making power, the most credibility to be able to make things happen. Selling into HR, selling into operations, call centers, like it's a very challenging proposition. So from a marketing standpoint, like that makes a lot of sense for us. Number 2, sales is the hardest thing to recruit for. Recruiting for salespeople is a sales process in and of itself. And what I mean by that is that number 1, the best of the best salespeople are not on job boards. What are they doing? They're selling. Like they're the best of the best because they're day in and day out selling. And so what we have to do is we have to actually go hunt. But before we go hunt, we need to put together our own sales materials because at the end of the day, we have to convince this amazing salesperson that the opportunity that we have for them is better than the opportunity that they're currently in. So that's what we do. The first 90 minutes, we do a kickoff call for 90 minutes. We go through everything from the core values of the organization, what makes them tick, where are they today, where do they want to be. We go over all the specs of what are the requirements for this role. We help guide through that phase and through the compensation phase because I think a lot of times, like that's the value and the expertise that great recruiters bring is like, what is the compensation for this? Where do you need to be? In sales, compensation is generally broke into commissions and base. And so it's a little bit more complex as well. And then we go hunt. And we're looking at competitors, we're looking at adjacent industries. And like from a sales standpoint, we're literally poaching. We're poaching the best salespeople from somewhere else and we're bringing them into your operation. So we do assessments and things like that, but I think that's kind of a key differentiator for us.
And I agree. That's how I describe our capabilities to clients or prospective clients. We're headhunters. That's what MilSpec Talent does, and we do leadership roles. We do roles where somebody typically manages people, but it could also be an individual contributor where they lead themselves, right? And our focus is understanding everything that the company is made up of and how they operate and what they're looking for in that key hire. And then we go headhunt. We knock on doors. We sell the opportunities because I mean that's just that's a lot of work. And I don't think most businesses understand how to go about problem solving for that particular problem. So I love how we're different in that sense, but also we have a lot of just capabilities and assessing talent quickly. I'd like to go into a fun little segment here called Brilliance or Bullshit, and call it out. I'm gonna say a couple of prompts, and anyone can start. There's no order. I'd love to hear your take on it. So here's the first one: hire slow, fire fast.
Bullshit. To I think people, if you have a candidate in a talent pool and you can get them onboarded, perhaps you bring them on as a 1099 for attempt to perm if you have questions about their ability. But until they're in your workplace or on your system, you don't know what they bring to the table. And I think as veterans, we're really bad at firing fast. And I know I've kept people on the books because I thought their contract was going to come through, and 6 months later, I'm down $80,000, right? So I think the opposite is true. Hire fast, fire fast.
Interesting. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I would actually say mostly bullshit as well. And so for one, when we think about this idea of hiring slow, generally what it does is like what we would find is that our clients will wait longer hoping that there's something better or hoping that like there's some sort of unicorn, and then they'll actually lose the person. And I can't tell you how many times that we've sent over like a perfect candidate on the first go, and they're like, it's like the first pitch, right? They're like, I'm not swinging at the first pitch. Like that's just crazy. And then they'll talk to like five more, and they'll be like, oh, that was actually the one. We're a month and a half, and that person already took an offer somewhere else. And so I think like hiring slow, it's more like hiring diligently. It's not about the speed. It's about the process that you have in place to be able to quantify and qualify the candidates that you have in front of you. But to like have this adage of like, well, I need to be slowed because there's a saying out there. I think that's crazy. On the on the firing fast, I do agree with that. I think like there's never been a time where I haven't felt something in my gut, and it usually happens way before the time in which I get to the place of where I'm making that decision. But very rarely is there a time where I feel it in my gut, and 6 months later, I'm like, oh, whew, thank God I didn't do that because that person was actually killer. That's never happened to me in my entire career. I've been doing this, 15, 18 years now, entrepreneurship and hiring people. Like when it's time to make a decision, or when you feel it's time to make a decision.
I think that's really well said. So I would put it on the brilliance category. Right? The reason why is for the types of roles we place. It's not necessarily the time of hiring slow, but I agree with you, Ryan. It's the diligence. I find that a lot of companies, a lot of clients they learn a lot of things by interviewing a bunch of different people, right? They understand a little bit more about what they're looking for, right? They understand what they need to get to that next level with this particular hire. So I see a lot of my clients. We do a lot of consultative, just coaching, and like, hey, this Johnny came with A, but Jennifer came with B. So like, what's going on here? What do you guys think about it? And it really helps them think through that. So if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, this hiring slow, being more deliberate makes sense. But if you do know what you're looking for, if you're hiring for that sales guy, it's a very clear cut. I think hiring quicker would be beneficial because candidates don't sit around. All right, what about this? We hire for culture fit.
Bullshit. I agree that companies should have a culture. I disagree that most companies have a different culture than any other company. Ultimately, especially in the veteran market, the culture is the personality of the owner, and that's the factor. Like integrity, accountability, acumen, all those things are important, and probably more important than do I want to get a beer with this guy on happy hour kind of thing.
What about you, Ryan?
Stephen, can I ask you a question on that? So I agree with the one of the things you just said in there is you said most of the time, and it's like basically every time the organization or the enterprise takes on the culture or core values of the owner itself. The question is like, do you believe all owners are the same?
I don't think all owners are the same. If someone were toxic or narcissistic, we probably wouldn't take them on as a client. I would probably get that during the onboarding. I tend to see the same personalities with the veteran market. In fact, I pulled up our disc profiles. I could share my screen real quick. And you'll see that it found we're different, but same, but different.
You talking about ours? Us
Yes,
three?
yeah. I ran a. We have a tool called Crystal Knows. It pulls your LinkedIn profile and it get your DISC profile based off that. And I ran a playbook for brainstorming for us three. So Ryan's the captain, Freddie's got the questions, and apparently I'm like the details guy. But look, we're all clustered in the same spot of the and I never get a business owner on this side of it. Everyone I work with is in this cluster. So I don't think we're all that different at the end of the day. And anyone who is on this side, I'd probably disqualify for gut or other reasons. And I can share this with you afterwards.
Yeah. Well, what do you use? It Crystal. This is called Crystal Knows.
Crystal Knows. It's a tool. It literally just takes your LinkedIn profile and puts you into the disc here. What I use it for is more on my corp to corp placements, where if the personality of the owner is very certain and I know the person that is interviewing is different, I'll give this to the owner and say like, hey, this is how you should go into the interview with that person. So yeah, it's a great tool. It's not expensive. Really mostly use it on corp to corp because the government doesn't care about this. But
scroll down a little bit more, Stephen.
Yeah.
Scroll down a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
So here's our brainstorming styles.
That's pretty cool.
And then how each of us would ask questions, how we would push back, instructions, all this stuff. And this is just one playbook. So I just picked this brainstorming one. But I can also do this one where the job is in the system. I put the candidate and then it generates a report. I won't bring anyone up just for privacy reasons, but yeah. And so cool. I give this to the owner, and I'm like, this is what you're going to deal with. Is that the person you want to interview? And if so, this is how they're going to want to be spoken to and their value proposition.
Ryan, have you seen this before?
Oh, I just took a note because like we're gonna get a license to this immediately. So Steven, thanks for sharing this because this is
I got you, bro. I got you.
Huge.
Really cool. What do you think on this on the whole hire for culture fit?
Yeah, I'm big into that. Like that's like one of our, when you think about like the three uniques, that's one of the things that we pitch as our three uniques. Stephen, I agree with a lot of what you said there. And I think the key there is like even the clients that you take or the clients that you turn around, like fit with you. But there's certain ones that you would turn around. And I think like that, I would make a case for that the ones that you would not take on as clients, they have a different culture. But you don't take them or you don't see them or those things. But when you look at Amazon or you look at Tesla and you compare that to Zappos, now I know Zappos is owned by Amazon, but Zappos has a very different culture than that. Tesla has a different culture than, I don't know, name another lovey-dovey company out there. And so I think it's important to align culture fit. So like one of our core values at Talent Harbor is growth mindset. And so we're not picking up folks that are just looking for a 9-to-5 job. I think sometimes in government contracting, like people are looking for stability and they're looking for control over their time. They want a 9-to-5 job. Do they want to do great work? Yes, when they're in the office. Growth mindset, being open to failure, a lot of that stuff doesn't necessarily happen in government. You've got a certain set of tasks, you complete those tasks. What we want at Talent Harbor is we want people that are going to fail. Because I know that if my people are failing, then they're experimenting. They're trying different things. They're pushing status quos. And so we're big on core values. We're big on culture. But I can definitely see it from Stephen's point of view on a lot of this because a lot of things he said are correct.
Yeah, and remember, he is you're doing contracting, staffing, so it is a very fast-paced thing. So you need tools like this to really help and assess people quickly. But I think culture, Ryan, you and I, we use EOS, right? So they really make a big emphasis on values. I tend to attract more clients that think like me. So yeah, I think it's important to a lot of these folks. Let me ask you this one here. AI is replacing recruiters. What do you think?
Bullshit.
There you
Bullshit.
go. Tell us.
So, Freddie, you're a people person. I'm more of an introvert. I can turn it on, but I do my best work when no one's talking to me. But I've accepted that I am in a people business. People are the value add. People are important, and they're all different in what they need. And the AI sourcing tools, the chatbots, the agentic AI, it's there is a need, I think, for like a big company with high volume and sure, but when we're looking for 1 out of 100 in the DC area and I send them to a chatbot to apply, that person's not going to do it. Um, what bugs me the most is the AI resume matching is just so slow. Like, I won't say my ATS, but I'm not happy with what they offer. Um, I've since Ryan said Loxo, we did a demo. It's a good tool. Um, just at the end of the day, if someone's not texting, emailing, or calling this person at every step of to once you break the egg till the omelet's cooked, if you're not having a person in that loop, you're not going to get the placement, especially in this economy and the challenge of finding the right people for roles.
Why can't AI substitute people dialing? What do you think? Why?
And you want a computer to talk to these people who are making 150,000 a year or more? No, not on my watch. I guess that's my culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that's recruiting, right? Like, recruiting is a people business. The only thing of recruiting is building relationships. And then like there's two things that are always thrown back at me where it's like, yeah, but look, they're already doing that at Chipotle, and I know that because my son applied to Chipotle. Sure, like Chipotle and a lot of these like lower level jobs, they don't use recruiters anyhow. By the way, like what are they doing? They're like optimizing an Indeed funnel. Like they are not ICPs for the recruiting industry. So, that doesn't make sense. And then you've got the guy, I had a post on this like 2 months ago, but you had the CEO of Perplexity saying recruiters are going to be replaced within the next 6 months. And then I went to Perplexity's LinkedIn page and he's freaking hiring recruiters. What are they doing? They're trying to convince their investors that they have something unique so they can go raise their next round of money at 10x what they raised their last series at. So like when this talk track happens, like one, you got to figure out who's saying it and like what is the motivation for them saying it, and is that even the market for recruiters? AI will make our jobs better. It'll streamline things. Like the more assessments and other tools that we can use to make sure that it's the right person, the right fit, all of these different things, great, all day long. But the negotiation, it's like AI is going to replace investment bankers and the negotiation process for like selling companies. No, it's like it's relationships. So no, it's complete horseshit.
That's a great example. Great example. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. The recruiting industry and staffing industries, we're playing a part, and well, it'll make us better, as both of you said, for sure. Make us faster, more effective, but replacing that's not going to be happening anytime soon. Without emotion, there's no connection. I got a couple more, but this is an interesting one here with people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. But but also, they're saying that there's the best way to retain talent is to pay them more, right? So what do you think about that?
I think the first statement is true. Like even as devil's advocate, I couldn't think of a real good pushback. Like maybe people leave jobs for a promotion or to do something different, right? We see that in GovCon. People work at a contract 1-2 years kind of thing. I don't agree with the comp part because everyone's utility curve, Wharton MBA reference, is different. And so, like Ryan said, maybe it's hybrid, maybe it's time off. Um, maybe they work 80 hours a week for a month and then do a leave of absence, something like that. And like that's not comp. Um, and like when I left the Navy and I got a management consultant job, I'm like, oh, my salary is $30,000 more, and I'm like, well, most of it went to taxes. So like, did it really change my quality of life? So giving someone an extra $10,000, does that change the quality of their life? It doesn't. It's a sign of recognition for growth or whatever, but no, you got to look at the big picture.
Yeah. I
Go
mean,
ahead,
that's
Ryan.
it. Well, there's not much more to say to that. Like, he just hit everything on the head. Like, the whole idea of retention is understanding what your teammates actually want. Like, what do they want out of life? What do they want out of the job? And then your job as a leader is to help them achieve those things. And I think, like, far too often there's this idea of like, oh, we're going to invest this money into developing, and then they're just going to leave. Most cases that does not happen, because like what the teammate is seeing or the employee is seeing is like, this company cares about me. They want to see me grow. They want to see me develop professionally. It's almost that like give before you take thing. Like, you're now giving, and it's not that you're, I mean, there's probably psychology and beholden and other things there, but like, what I have found is like retention is building a great culture and like staying true to what that is. And so for us, like, it's about developing our team. We've got people, we've only been around for, I don't know, like a little bit over a year now. And like, we're already investing real dollars into like training and certifications and other things for the team that we have in place. And it's I don't know, like, the ROI on that is very positive, but long-winded. It's like, well, maybe that's not what they want. Maybe they do want more money. Okay, well then in that case, it is more money, or maybe they want more time off. In that case, it's whatever it is. But you have to understand what the team wants first before you start going out and trying to do guesswork on retention plans.
Right, and that's something that I mean, when I recruit, which is not that much anymore. Personally, that's one of the things that recruiters need to understand, like uncover what are your motivations, right? You need to really understand what are your candidates' motivations and speak to it. So if a company is investing into the whole picture of that person, of that employee, they're gonna feel fulfilled. So I absolutely agree. It's not just a job. They're going to end up staying with somebody that cares for them. We touched upon some of these. I think it was fun to get your opinions on them. What do you think? Is there anything special like that you've seen in your business that veterans bring to the table, or is it just hype? Or
So our focus is mostly on the veteran business owner. We've done job fairs in the past and tried to recruit folks with clearances to do work, but obviously those roles are competitive, so everyone I talk to I can't place. I mean, I think the obvious things are just like, if you get someone fresh out and they're not a dirtbag, then they bring that accountability, the structure. What they probably lack, and Ryan can probably bet to this, like, as a SWO, we were told to turn off our credibility or creativity. One of my XOs, he's like, my buddy brought him a great idea. Cornell grad, smartest guy I ever met. And the XO told him, we're not going to do that. And he goes, there are no opportunities for success. There are only opportunities for failure. And that's the culture that we grew up in, and which I was glad to lead. And so I don't think veterans have that risk seeking or the even risk neutral mentality or thinking out the box. And I think that's something a company can impart over time. But those are the plus and minuses, I think, of veteran hiring.
Yeah. To Steven's point, like, here's a quick story. So I was prior enlisted. I was a helicopter aircrewman. And so like in the enlisted ranks, you're told exactly what to do and you do those things. So the creativity or the lack of thereof, like once I became a SWO, like I was already kind of used to that because I just did what I was told. And when I crossed into the officer ranks, like it was like letting my team go early one time, and it took another division officer coming over, and they're like, you can make that decision, right? Like that's I was like, oh my gosh, this is freedom. Here's what I think's important about this, though, is that what the military has taught humans, what they've built is resiliency. And whether they know it or not, the adversity, the challenges, the training, like we train in the military to fail. And we train and we fail during training. So that way, when the balloon goes up, like we're just executing. So that's all we do all day long is train, train, train. We make mistakes. We correct that mistake. We train again. And I think what's really important about what Steven said is like, you have to unlock that. It's already inside of them. They've already experienced it for 4, 8, 12, 20, 25 years. To a certain extent, though, they don't know that they have it. They have to break out of that box. So what's really interesting is like military veterans are some of the most incredible hires out there. They have the resilience in them built up, and you just have to figure out how to unlock it.
So let me ask you, like, when the rubber hits the road, in your business, do you see that veterans are getting hired more than their counterparts, or their retention or their success shows that they're more effective?
I don't really have any data to say either way.
Yeah, I don't have the data either. I don't have the statistics in that. What I will say though is like in my experience, I do not see veterans getting hired like more often or more frequently. The organizations that are taking it seriously, JP Morgan's one of them, Amazon's another one. Like they have veteran programs inside. They have advocates for it. They have recruiters that are going out and building those bridges, which is great. So I would say if the largest companies out there are like making that type of initiative, then there's definitely data that exists that says this. I think the biggest issue that veterans have is that they don't know how to sell themselves. Like they have spent all that time in the military and they have no idea how to job hunt, how to network, how to take their past and translate that into something meaningful that's going to be completely different than like shooting rifles or driving big warships. So I would say like my assumption, asked out of you and me, would be that the data does exist based upon what we're seeing in the market. I'll also say that I don't see veterans getting hired probably as much as they should, and I think that's a failure of some of the transition programs and some of the other things that are out there.
So I'm biased because I prioritize veteran hires, right? So I'll start with that. But I've seen, as you said, Ryan, veterans don't know how to market themselves, so and show what their capabilities and strengths are. So I've seen that most business owners, if they're a veteran business owner, they already know just the strengths of hiring vets. So just from numbers, yes, they want vets because we understand what we bring to the table, even though it may not be clearly written in black and white. So in the end, yes, I've seen it. I've seen the effectiveness of it. People love it. I have a story here with just a client. They hired a GM. They're non-veterans, right? The owners are. They hired a general manager, excuse me, or president of their firm, and they said, "Wow, I can't believe that when I called this guy at 3 in the morning at one of my locations, and we had a fire, not literal fire, but we had something that really solved. That guy showed up. He showed up, drove to that location, drove on site, and said, "What the hell is going on?" and went to collect data and to fix it, right? And to lead the people there to fix it. I think those attributes are what makes veterans different and makes them special. And most people just don't know what to look for. What?
And just sorry, Ryan, just to build on my earlier point, like I am not exempt from this. Like as a business owner, it took me 4 or 5 years before I could say no to anyone. And when I got that capability, like that was changed my whole perspective on life. And like so me, highly educated, experienced, like it took 5 years to say this is how I'm going to do it. So
Yeah, me too. Like transition was so hard for me as well, and it took me I'd say about 5 to 7, because that's when I started the entrepreneurial journey. Took me at least that time to figure out how do I fit in and what can I do for greater society here as a vet now, right? Let's say there are businesses that or companies, mid-sized companies that are like, hey, I want to hire vets. I believe in vets. We want to invest in vets. What kind of misconceptions do you think many businesses have about hiring vets?
I've always been going first. It's your time to go first, Ryan.
Why do you throw it over with a question like that?
I have one. I'll share one, and then I'll turn it over to whoever has the next. But one of my biggest that I constantly tell people is that a veteran is not just somebody that got out of the military, right? It's not somebody who was holding a rifle, pulling the trigger, and then in 6 months they are looking for a job now. We know that there's 200,000 service members that transition from the military every year. We got that. And if you're hiring vets, you don't only have to look at that pool. Those are, in fact, I think those are the hardest types of people to really assess because they have to go through their own journey to figure out who they are and how they fit in society. But there's also this vast pool of 19 million vets in the U.S. who have successfully transitioned, who have figured out what they're good at, who have figured out their success. Right? They found a path of success in whatever they did in corporate world that can add just immense value with their technical abilities and also their leadership foundation. So consider that when you're hiring vets.
And just to build upon that, I would say military spouses have a lot of capacity and acumen that's not being tapped into. Maybe they can't fit the 9 to 5 model, but they're good at accounting and they could do fractional work. Like we're not doing a good job of getting those people into the workforce.
Yep. Gosh, that was. I'll say two things. The first is like we don't specialize in veterans, and it sounds like Freddie, you do, and Stephen, like it's certainly something that you consider. And there's a guy, Christian Ruff, who like his whole specialty is placing operators. So like there's another one in CEO Circle that just got in. He's doing it as well. I think for me, like I do want to make sure I give back to the community. And so like I'm part of a veteran program out here called BizVets LA. And it's all about like mentoring transitioning service members and helping them jumpstart their professional career, which is incredible. The one thing that I think sometimes people get lost in is like, if they're not special operators, they aren't shit. And I would say that like that it doesn't have to be that way. And like, listen, there's a certain resiliency, there's a certain acumen. Like there are different things that come kind of spread across. But you know, it can go kind of across the board on who you're looking for. So I would say like, you know, if they didn't come out of the SEAL community or some other community, like that doesn't mean that they're not qualified or capable to excel in the role.
That's the damn truth. I want to emphasize that again. There's a lot of hype around special ops guys, just having this fancy organization tied to your background and resume, and people think that that's the best of the best, right? I'll tell you a little secret. I actually stay away from special ops transitioning folks because I was one, and my transition was very difficult and very humbling. Right? In a SEAL team, in a Green Beret, as a Green Beret on an ODA, even a Ranger regiment, like you operate with other people of that caliber and with authority, rank, with UCMJ, where what the commander says is executed, right? It's executed to a T. But in the civilian world, in the corporate world, it's not the case. And I think I've seen many people struggle with that, because now you're dealing with a 25-year-old who's your boss, or just, you're dealing with a group of civilians that don't take what you're putting out and just executing to that T, right? Or questioning it or pushing back. So I've seen many people struggle with that, and I've also seen many people be successful in that. But there's that stat, as you guys know. What is it? Like 40% vets leave their first job in the first year, and that raises to like 70% that leave their first job in the first 2 years, right? Something like that. And people just need to figure themselves out and demilitarize a little bit, and I believe in that. Let's just kind of speak to the veteran entrepreneur, right? So people who understand vets, people who understand hiring for hiring the best there is for their company. What kind of advice do you have for veteran business owners when they're trying to build their team with or without vets? Like how they should think about building their what we call A team.
So one thing we deal with is we get the job description from a client and it's 2 pages long. And it's just too long. And if I were to call the owner and ask them, what are the really top 5 things that you want from this person? They probably can't tell me that. And so like it's that disconnect. And some of them are intangible, like culture or personality or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, what do you want this person to do? How are you going to grade their performance? And we need to identify exactly what those skills and the metrics for that person. And I don't think a lot of veterans think that data-driven perspective on hiring.
I think you nailed it with that one, Stephen. Just like, what are the expectations of performance for your hire, right? As opposed to, I think a lot of us think, the best indicator of future performance is past performance. And they're like, oh, we need to get all these guys who've done it before and really just go after the names and the credibility. But if you clearly define what you want them to do first, and here are the KPIs to measure that, finding your next hire would be a lot easier. What about you, Ryan?
I'll piggyback off that one, and I've got another one, but and Stephen, it's not just veteran entrepreneurs. Every business owner we talk to, like the JD we get, 2 pages and straight out of ChatGPT. And one of the things that we like to talk about is like, and I used to do this, like guilty as charged. Like before GPT, I was just ripping JDs off of Indeed or somewhere else. Oh, marketing manager, copy, paste, and submit or publish. Every job is like unique, and it's unique to that organization. It's unique to the KPIs of that organization. It's probably like, one thing out of this role from that job description you saw. So like everything should actually be built from scratch. And I think that's one thing when people are paying for recruiters, that's one thing that they're getting is like that expertise to come in and redo the whole job description. Mine is a little different just because I'm so gung-ho on EOS. EOS changed my life, the entrepreneurial operating system. And there's kind of two business Bibles that I use in entrepreneurship. The first is pre-product market fit, and that's called the lean startup. And that's all about like, how fast can you get to some form of product market fit? Because the faster you get to your first client, the faster you can start building, understanding your value prop, and then expanding that to other clients. And then there's post-product market fit, and that's a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. And basically, this is a framework in which how to operate your business. And the thing that we find is that there are companies out there that don't understand who they are, why they exist, who their target clients are, what is their value proposition. Those are all foundational. And if you're not operating on EOS, it's very simple. It's your vision, your mission, your core values, those types of things. but you have to understand who you are, why you exist, where are you at in your business cycle, what are your core values, all of these like intangibles that really are not in the job description, to understand who you're actually looking for. Because maybe you do, like, maybe it's an accounting role and all you really need is an accountant to sit in a seat and make sure that the numbers are in the right. You want a very detail oriented person, and like, growth mindset and taking risks aren't a big factor. Maybe it's something else where like you want this person just punching numbers into a phone every single hour or every single minute. If you don't have the foundation kind of laid ahead of time, your chances of hiring the wrong person are very, very high. And that's coming from someone that probably had a batting average of like 20% right hires when I first got started in business.
Yeah, no, that's solid. I have one more thing for you guys, and now we're gonna just change our messaging to the transitioning vets. We're all three are veterans. We've transitioned. We've kind of found our place somewhat in the civilian world, in the corporate world. Now, what kind of advice do you have for that transitioning vet today, where they're looking at just the chaos, the hiring struggle, the finding a job journey that people are going through, AI, just this current macro economics? What kind of advice do you have for folks?
So I'll start with the basics. Don't skip TAP class or whatever they call it in the other services. Like, go to TAP, do that. Second, get your VA disability rating. Don't skip that. I have a buddy now who's been out for 6 years and he's just doing his paperwork. I'm like, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars you left on the table. Three, get your LinkedIn up to date. Talk to someone who's a professional to help you tailor your resume to the opportunities that you're applying for. And I think most people who get hired are going to get hired from someone in their network. So they need to be flexing that and asking for help. Like, one thing CEO Circle taught us is how to be vulnerable, right? But a vet's not going to be vulnerable. But if they embrace that and ask their network for help, they're going to find things that are not published, or even in the best case scenario, create their own role.
Why do you think cater your resume to that specific role? How should they think about this?
So it goes back to Ryan's earlier point about like a ship driver. How are you going to be an operations manager at a paper plant, right? Skill sets probably overlap, probably overqualified to be the manager at the paper plant, but how the commercial world thinks and how you think are completely misaligned. And there's resources for you to get that translation when you don't know how to do it yourself at the beginning.
Just my 2 cents on that before you jump in, Ryan. It would be like, very practically, most people, the first person reading a resume, they're 20, 25-year-old recruiters, right? And if they don't see the right stuff on their resume, they're going to just put you in the bottom. Same thing with ATS. But if you're going to go for a sales role, that's different from what you should be selling about your background than an ops role or a supply chain role. So whatever kind of function you're looking for, try to focus on that type of past performance that you can highlight for your resume. What do you have, Ryan?
Yeah, Stephen, you covered a whole bunch in there, and I think it really comes down to who you know, and like and being able to network your way into a job. Like, this maybe is like the hidden secret of corporations and Indeed and LinkedIn and all these other things. They are getting hundreds of applications. The idea that yours is going to somehow break through, very low odds. And so it's about like understanding who the hiring manager is, or starting to like get close with people that have already transitioned, that have jobs. But the advice that I would have is like, start to think about truly what you want to do, because that'll take you down a certain path right out of the gate. Stephen went to grad school, and that's I didn't do that, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but that's a great 2-year opportunity to like do some self discovery, understand how the system works. So if you have an opportunity to do that and that's on your trajectory, like that's amazing. And the military has given us free money. I had to pay for that when I joined, $100 a month for 12 months, and then they just kept it and gave it to everybody for free. But there's opportunities for you to go do that and like learn more and like understand what you're getting into. Down the entrepreneurship path. The word of warning I have for the entrepreneurship path is like, usually my word of advice is like, don't give up. What I've learned over the last several years is like, you either got it or you don't. And like, you're either comfortable operating in the complete unknown with like everything on the line, everything being your home, your livelihood, your reputation, everything constantly, day to day, not knowing what's going to come, having everybody's livelihoods depending on the decisions that you're making. You either got it or you don't. And so like, that's a path if you're like, I'm just going to figure this out and I'm going to fail my way to success. There's the professional path. There's the trades path. Holy crap. I just read an article this morning in WSJ said aircraft mechanics, certified aircraft mechanics now can make up to $300,000 a year. Like, you want to talk about trades that are like exploding right now. You can translate those skills into real opportunities on the outside world. So long-winded, more in a short-winded, is like, start to think about what it is you want to do, and that'll help you start to steer earlier and be more focused in whatever the strategy becomes.
And I'll just give an example. Last duty station was in San Diego. I came back to DC where my family's at, and I ran into one of the sailors I stood watch with at a gala. He was working as security, like not his day job. He had a real job at a big company. We connected. This is 10 years ago. He sent me an email 3 months ago. He's like, "How's it going? Anything I can do?" And I'm like, "Hey man, things are tight right now. Write me in the new year, because if I had something and the budget, I would hire this guy." But the onus was on him to remind me that he wants to work for me.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I'll take that one step too and say meet with a lot of transitioning vets. I'm sure you guys talk to vets, as well, and they ask for this perspective or opinions, right? And I think making sure that when you're after hiring managers or just even mentors, being more specific is helpful, more helpful than being so broad and saying, "Hey, what do you think I can be when I grow up?" My hypothesis is that I like ops in manufacturing environment because I've done this kind of stuff. What can you tell me about that kind of world, right? And being more focused on who you meet with and who you get advice from. And I also suggest, like, if you don't know what you don't know and you don't know what your passion is, it's kind of what you said earlier, Ryan, but start very quickly failing at things and turning them off and go through this process of elimination next and just keep doing it. So it comes down to a few things you may be interested that's actually worth a shit, right? Cool. Is there anything you would like to wrap this up with? Anything I missed or anything I should have asked you?
This might be a little bit of a hot take, but when we were talking about culture earlier and fitting the person into the culture, I think with the all the different generations, and you almost have to make a culture for each person. And I don't think a lot of business owners are willing to embrace that. I mean, Amazon doesn't have to, right? But if you have 10 to 50 employees, I think you can, and you're obligated to do that to retain and keep good talent.
What do you mean by that? You have to make a culture for what is that?
It just, like, back to the utility curves. Like, if leave or a pet care insurance is their thing, then you have to make that happen. And or flexible work schedule or whatever. It's just like, if you're not asking those questions about how do you best want to fulfill your obligations, then you're failing to be a leader to that person.
Yeah. And like Stephen, I like where you took that of like getting to the kind of individualized level of like what people want, what they need, make sure you're fulfilling those. I agree. It's cross generational. I'll give you an example, and this is probably why I pushed back so hard a little bit on you earlier. Like we had a prospective client come to us a few weeks ago, and we do sales roles. And so we were going through their VTO, their vision traction organizer, understanding their core values. And it was just a prospect call. It wasn't the kickoff call. And we went through their core values, and he said, but these two things in my core values, I don't want them for my salesperson because I need my salesperson like this, and this. And I'm going to be honest with you here. We didn't move forward with them. And it's because like, that's how deeply I believe that like, you don't change your core. You don't hire an asshole salesperson because they can do more sales. Like I would say that's more of a degradation across the enterprise. But I really like the way that you just position that of like, it's really understanding like what your people want. And I think what you're saying is like on an individual basis, 100% agree with that.
Yeah, so if you've stuck around this long and you've been listening to us just talk about all of these topics, us three, we are all in the same cohort for CEO Circle, right? And we're in Red 2, and it's a cohort of, I don't know, 10, 12 people in our group, and we're all recruiting. And at first, I was just a little bit put off by it. I was like, man, they're putting competitors, and that's kind of strange. But we got to a point where with just building trust and vulnerability and just being vets, I think it led us to building that trust much more quickly. And I take pride in getting to know you guys and getting your perspectives on this industry. And I value your time and what you guys are doing for vets as well. So thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. And for the rest of you out there, now go build your A team.
Thanks, Freddie. Thanks, Ryan. This is great.
Thanks, Freddie.